And it's a bit darker. The reason being, it is...
Take 7?
7 or 8.
8?
Yeah. We tried to do it earlier and it didn't quite work, did it? So I wanted to ask a question, and we kind of were talking this earlier. How's your week gone?
What with regards to like hurry and
yeah. So we're talking about this whole book, aren't we? So the book is that we're looking at is the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Marcoma, and this is our 4th week. And so how you doing?
Well, I think I was kind of forced to unhurry by having a really, really awful cold at the beginning of the week.
Okay.
So I actually just, once the kids had got over it and gone back to school, had to just sit and kind of
recover.
So I did a jigsaw and
that's good.
Watched a bit of TV and listened to some podcasts, but I just wasn't in a fit state to run around and do anything. I get that. So although now I'm a bit like, there's loads of things that I should have done and I haven't done, actually it was quite an unhurried week. How about you?
My week has been, do you know what the bit about my week that I found the hardest was our transition on doing Sabbath on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then going back into work. And I found that transition really hard because I went from, actually, I read Eddie Jones's biography, almost I finished it the whole day. So it was great.
Yeah.
However, I then found myself jumping back on the
100 miles an hour
train, and that was
rushing
hard.
into things.
So I don't know how I'm working on that. I need to slow down probably in the rest of the week to enable me to not have such a big jump up and a big jump down.
Yeah. So we're going to come on to talking about Sabbath and doing some teaching on that in a few weeks' time. That's one of the things that we're trying as a family. So yeah, great.
So this week we are on a different chapter.
We're on chapter 5. So last week we looked at the fact that sadly more time is not the answer to the issue of hurry, which probably should be relief, seeing as we can't actually have any more time.
Although I did think that during this week, actually reflecting on that, I'd quite like to be an ace cook. Cordon bleu.
You've added another thing to your list of things to do if you have 3 extra hours in the day. Good. I'd quite like you to be a cordon bleu too. That would be great. So this week we are moving on to the next chapter, which is where we get to talk really about what was Jesus talking about when he said that his yoke is easy and his burden is light.
And you quite like this chapter. This is one of your favourite chapters.
It is so far, yeah. Because I really love getting under the layers of scripture and really understanding it in its context and really kind of mining it for what it's worth. And so I really enjoyed this chapter because at the beginning of it we get this whole real really insightful for me explanation of what it really meant that when Jesus was talking about a yoke. So just really briefly, one bit of that is that in the first century when Jesus was alive, every rabbi, so every teacher of the law, of which there were lots in Israel, people who would know the Torah and teach the Torah, they all had something which people just colloquially called their yoke.
Okay.
So the yoke was the thing with the oxen, but also they would.
Did you see how I didn't talk about the egg in that? Oh no, sorry.
Yeah, the yoke. That they had this thing that everybody kind of referred to as their yoke, and what that meant was their way of teaching the scriptures.
Okay.
And more than that, their way of doing life. So how you apply the scriptures to live life, and sort of how you use that to kind of bear the burdens of life.
So what would be the expectation of somebody then who was following that teaching? What would that person expect to be?
I guess people would probably hear a rabbi teach on their yoke, their way of explaining the scriptures, and then they'd be like, that I really like that, and so they might decide to become an apprentice or a disciple, sometimes we call them. But what that meant for them was that they would just go and be a student of the rabbi, I guess. So they would be with them all the time, and they'd travel around with them to wherever they went.
Like disciples.
So be with them, try to be like them, because they're trying to learn to be like,
so you're kind of on the job at the same time as they're doing.
Yeah, so you're having a go, watching how they deal with stuff and trying to deal with it in that way too. And then thinking, well, what would that person do if they were me? So if it were being apprentices of Jesus, what would Jesus do if he was in my shoes? So it's not quite like what would Jesus do?
That's a tough.
But like, what would Jesus do if he was in my shoes? And that's really challenging.
It is really challenging.
And I just found that kind of explanation of the kind of context of the scripture and the way that the language would have been used colloquially in that time really helpful to understanding this scripture, because a yoke is a really old, to us it's a kind of outdated metaphor, because we don't plough or farm in that way anymore, but I just found that really, really helpful, and I really love that kind of understanding the layers of the scripture in that way. But I think what's really interesting is, you know, we've talked about this before, like where we're like, you read stuff and you're like, oh, that's really great, but it just feels like another list of stuff to do, right?
Yeah, that's the only thing that concerns me. And I wonder if
any of you were feeling like that, like, oh, they're talking about this stuff and it's a yoke, and like, it's just going to be another whole list of stuff to do, and I'm already like tired, and you know.
Because I guess, not talk about Jesus because he says his yoke is easy.
Yes. But and that was what was different about
than
all the other rabbis, because all the other rabbis were like, life is hard, this is how we can handle the hardness of life, and Jesus is like, life is hard, but my yoke is easy. And
I think some of us find that quite hard to grasp.
Yeah.
That Jesus' yoke is easy, because we get so caught up in religion, and religion is hard work because it requires you to hit the mark, to do a certain thing. So you're kind of the insider or the outsider. Whereas Jesus was calling the people around to follow him. It was kind of like the way. He
was like, come apprentice under me and learn my way of doing life, because my way of doing life is easy and it's restful.
I think that word apprentice I find much easier than disciple, funnily enough.
Yeah, I think it's more practical, I suppose, isn't it? And it really is about doing life Jesus' way. So John Mark Comer shares this really great quote from Dallas Willard. He's a really great teacher and really insightful. If you ever get the chance to read something by him, that would be really great. But Dallas Willard says this about this passage in Matthew 11 where Jesus is talking about the easy yoke. And he says this: in this truth lies the secret of the easy yoke. The secret involves living as Jesus lived in the entirety of his life, adopting his overall lifestyle.
Wow.
Okay.
So it's almost like putting on a clothing, it's becoming.
But he goes on to say, our mistake that we often make, in church and life, is to think that following Jesus consists in, loving our enemies, tick, got that one, going the second mile, tick, turning the other cheek, suffering patiently and hopefully while living the rest of our lives just as everyone else around us does. Willard says it's a strategy bound to fail. My friend, that's so fascinating.
Why did you find that fascinating? Because I could see.
Because I think that's often how we, I talk for myself, but I like to read, and so we'll read a book on something, and I'll be like, right, okay, I really need to change the way I think about that thing, and then I'll read something else or get some really great teaching and be like, okay, so, Lord, is that an issue for me? I really need to work on that one. And it's not that any of those things are wrong. It's just that, like, we're missing the kind of glue that sticks it all together and makes it work, which is just to live in the rhythms and the pattern of the yoke that Jesus does. And it's like, it's so plainly there in front of us because we have the scriptures, like, this is how Jesus lived. And we could go, oh, I can live that way too. And then actually all those other things kind of come more easily.
So there's a bit of tension there,
but it's like we miss it.
But there's a bit of tension there, isn't there? Because actually we can look, it's like you're saying about, we can read all these books, and we read a book and we see all the great things in that book. Yeah.
And they are really great and we should do them.
But actually we get stuck at the doing. It's like my mandolin, I brought the mandolin, I asked you to buy it for Christmas, it was great. I'd listened to some favourite band that I was listening to at the time that sounded amazing. I thought that would be great if I can put that in the music that I'm doing, or some of the stuff that I'm doing. That would be absolutely incredible. And it lasted for a bit. Yeah. And then
now it looks really pretty hanging on the wall, and I dusted it.
It's just there. But I guess it's kind of funny because in following Jesus' way, there's a cost to that. And the cost in that is not what we expect, because the cost in that is actually letting go of the need to go fast.
Yeah.
Because I know that I can get addicted with going fast.
Yeah, and achieving things and ticking things off the list. Yeah, definitely. And yet, what's really going on here is talking about adopting a lifestyle, and Jesus saying, yes, I know that you're tired and you're worn out, and it just feels like crazy racing through life, and we all get to a bit like, really, isn't there any more than this? And really, Jesus, what I need is like a 3-week vacation on the beach, if only right now. And actually, I need like someone else to do all the cooking and to not have to think about work and all those things. And actually, Jesus is like, no, really, what you need is not to get off the treadmill for 3 weeks. It's to learn my way of doing life, my yoke. So that actually you don't get to that point where you feel like you just need to zone out for 3 weeks because it's all just got too much. And actually that every day, the ongoing, always. And
you can see that. And you can see that in the beginning, the way that Jesus, the way that God created the world in terms of that was that Sabbath
that's
day.
How important
but
it
was,
is.
But we have a week and the day is repeated, so there is that sense of rest. Is so important that it's in every week.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we get to a holiday and that is our point of rest.
Yeah.
And I wonder, in terms of my week and my Sabbath and having that rest, whether my day would be taken much more effectively, and the impact of it would be so much more effective if I had slowed down throughout the week. So it was it was a lifestyle, it was a journey through the week, and I was slowed down.
And then actually things like being patient, not getting frustrated, handling anger, how we deal with people at work that we find difficult, all those things.
Putting kids to bed.
When we're when we're rested, and actually soaking up just being in God's presence. That all those things become more easily. And we're going to go on because the book gets way more practical in the next few weeks, where we start to talk about really what some of these practices of the way of Jesus are, and that's really exciting. So just your one soundbite to take away from the book is, if you want to experience the life of Jesus, you have to adopt the lifestyle of Jesus. So this is not just do the things that Jesus did, this is take on his lifestyle. If we want to experience the life of Jesus, we have to adopt the lifestyle of Jesus.
Great.
It's great.
Well, I hope you have a good week, and it takes you less than 7 times to do whatever you're doing. And we will see you next Sunday.
Yeah. Enjoy, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Hi guys, it's so good to have you this morning, whether it be on Facebook or on Zoom. We are Hemel Vineyard Church, and we're just doing life together as we follow Jesus. If you want to be part of that journey, then feel free to come and join us, whether it be on Zoom, again on Facebook next week, or drop us a line and have a conversation with us. We'd love to hear from you. Another place you can find out what's going on would be to check out our website, which is www.hemelvineyard.org.uk. I pray this week that you would know Jesus' love and his presence with you in whatever you face. See you next week. Bye.